Hello, it's Leslie here. Today I thought I would do a timely video on how you can save money in your cycling hobby. If you haven't actually bought a bike yet and you walk into your local bike shop, you'll probably be in for a bit of a shock at the cost of even mid-range bikes today. It's astronomical. The prices of bikes have gone up a huge amount in the last 10 years compared to wages and everything. Anyway, I won't get into that. So the first thing I think is just I personally stay away from magazines. I haven't bought any magazines for a long time. So because if you buy magazines then you get tempted, and I don't even watch cycling YouTube videos because I know they're just going to tempt me with the latest thing, and so I haven't actually bought any cycling parts for a while. Anyway, the first thing I say is just, yeah, I don't think despite the name of my channel, Pinarello, Fat Pinarello Rider, I don't really think Pinarellos are worth the money, especially at the top end. They're just overpriced, and yeah, so that's my first piece of advice is don't buy a bike that's $20,000 because just the value of the bike is just not there. Even if you look at the most expensive top shelf bikes, they tend to come with, uh, you know, the name. Say they won't come with a Sella Italia saddle. They'll come with their own brand name saddle, which is not really quite the same thing. So anyway, I've always liked to buy expensive stuff, but I kind of backed off now because I think this is getting out of hand now. But what I'm saying is, even at the top end, I don't think the value is there. I speak as a cyclist and a material scientist. I don't think the value is there anymore. Now, in the past, carbon fiber used to be more of an exotic material, but anyway. So the first thing I'll say is the top tiers like Dura Ace and Super Record, they don't work that much better than the tiers under them. So that's the first thing is you don't have to buy the most expensive bike. I think this 105 level is good enough these days. So that's the first thing. Don't buy the most expensive thing. You probably know that already anyway. I think the next thing you can do is think, well, do you always have to buy a new bike? There's a lot of value in buying second-hand on eBay. So it's always going to be cheaper to buy last year's model. And unlike, say, computers, which seem to get 100 or 1,000 times faster or more powerful memory after a decade, I don't think the cycling components are 100 times better than, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So they're kind of incremental improvements. And things are getting so expensive today, I probably won't be buying the top end components anymore. I just don't think I can afford it. So, I haven't bought an actual off the peg bike for probably 20 years or so. So, uh, I think you can save a lot of money by buying used things on eBay, and some of these things are not even don't even think of them as used. Think of, because you can buy new old stock things that are maybe 5 years old, and the price might be half it was. So I've been buying a lot of new old stock, which is technically still new. You're not buying it with the same warranty, but you're saving a lot anyway. So uh, just because I used to be, when I had a really good job and I was in my 20s, I used to buy everything new, and I thought, ugh, why would I want to buy anything second hand? Ugh. But you can use eBay and still just, if the thought of buying something second hand turns you off because it's used in a grotty or dirty, you don't know its history, just, you can always buy things that are new old stock. And as I say, you'll save a lot of money that way. I'm also pointing out here that if we put our own scratches and things onto, like if we scratch something or drop something, we kind of think, well, most of us, I think. Oh, my computer's. Okay, I had to do this video in two parts. My computer crashed and dropped the resolution a bit. So I do have a new computer coming to record these videos properly because I know I've had some video issues. Anyway, I'll get back to what I was saying before. I think that, if we damage our own new things that we buy, we accidentally scratch something or drop something, we don't usually think. I think a lot of us just put up with it and keep the things that we have. We don't then just say, "Ooh, it's got a scratch on it," and then sell it straight away and buy another one. I think most people like me, that they just tend to overlook their own scratches, and yet they see something else, someone else that puts scratches on as something, oh, that's unacceptable because someone else has done it. But if we do it ourselves, then it's like we put up with it. So what I'm saying is, you know, uh, consider buying something. There's very different grades of used products, and some things are trashed and they look horrible condition, but other things, if you look and you look around, actually some things are used, but they're actually pretty new still. And I have a look, and sometimes they're almost new, and yet they're being sold as used. So I go off a lot of eBay pictures, and if there's a lot of detailed pictures, then I think, well, okay, and take a chance. And I think I've done quite well, like saving a lot of money like that. So I think you can save a hell of a lot of money by just not buying new, buy used. Another thing is, a $5,000 bike these days is a big outlay, and you can probably save a lot. Or let's say it's always usually cheaper to buy the whole bike together, but you can save a lot if you can't afford, say, two, three, 4,000 in one hit. You might be able to uh, buy the parts separately. Now, this is going to usually be more expensive overall, but you can break up the cost of a bike into smaller chunks that way. The thing there is, if you're a beginner, you're probably not confident enough to build a bike yourself. But then what my suggestion is sign up to a forum or something and ask people's advice, Google research, and consider maybe not your first bike, building it yourself, but consider building a bike, your second bike perhaps, because you'll it will be less outlay if you buy all the parts separately. I also recommend, say in photography, the common advice is invest in the lenses, because the lenses are the good thing that doesn't get obsolete, if you like, and the camera body. Well, with bikes, it's the frame. Usually, you spend a bit more on the frame. You don't change the frames often. The components of the parts that wear out, and the components that are the parts that you change more often. So maybe spend a bit more on the frame and then a bit less on the components. I made this huge mistake when I was starting out. I just had this steel bike, which I still have now, a GT steel Timberline, and I decked it out on all these XTR components and everything, and it still weighed a ton because the frame uh, was still quite heavy. So I'm saying, learn by people's mistakes like mine. Don't just dump all the best parts onto an ordinary, basic, horrible frame, because you'll blow a lot of money and it won't be any better. So it's probably better to put, if you do have to budget, then buy a bit of a better frame. You can always upgrade the parts later on. The next thing I'll say is, yeah, if you don't always have to buy the latest thing, and I don't think the value is there anymore, and you will save a lot of money even if you, for example, if you buy, now it's, there's 11, 12, 13 speed bikes. My main training bike is still actually 9 speed. I started out cycling when my that GT Timberline I just told you about was 7 speed. I pretty much upgraded it straight away to 8 speed. So even if I'm riding around on a bike that's 9 speed today, it still feels to me like an upgrade because I started out on really well 8 speed. So with the speeds, I mention this because you can save a lot of money uh, by doing that because the bikes that have less speeds are a little bit cheaper. They're older, so they're going to be cheaper anyway. But the cassettes are cheaper. You know, instead of paying three, four, $500, $600 for one of these silly, crazy price cassettes these days, my training bike, I buy cassettes, and they might be $100, $120. That's Australian dollars, so far less than $100 American for a good Ultegra cassette, right? So I save a lot of money by doing that. On that bike, it still happens to be a triple. Anyway, uh, triple chainring. So not only are the cassettes cheaper, but the actual chains are cheaper as well. The chains are cheaper. You know, there might be say $60 as opposed to $110 for a chain. So you can save the money there. Also, I think the cogs on the 9 speed and 10 speed are thicker anyway, so they probably last longer. One area you can save a lot of money is tires. You know, in the past, I've saved, when I was a student and I was doing a lot of miles of cycling, I used to save a bit of money on tires. But I soon found out that if you try to skimp on tires, that's not probably the best place to skimp money on a bicycle because the cheap tires do not have as much puncture protection as the more expensive ones. The more expensive ones have higher thread count and belts, different belts, Vectron belts, whatever in them, and you won't get so many punctures with better quality tires. And also they're lighter. It doesn't make sense to buy an expensive bike or even a mid-range bike and then put cheap shit 1 kilo tires on there because you'll ruin the performance of it. Having said that, more expensive tires tend to wear out faster. So if you really do want to save a lot of money, get cheaper tires because they have literally a lot of times the cheaper tires, especially in the urban market, the urban side of things, they have thicker rubber at the center of the tire. But anyway, I've been spoilt, so I kind of usually buy nicer tires. Speaking of tires and things, well, I have one bike that's tubeless and I don't really like it. I'm going back to tubes probably. You know, even things like when you get a puncture, I'm talking if you have inner tubes here, learn to repair the inner tubes. You know, inner tubes can cost whatever it is, $20 or more. I still use rubber ones on my main bike, my training bike, and I could never repair tires properly when I started. The patch always came off. I'm talking about the glue, the original way. It always stuffed up, and I could never do it properly. This is another video, but you know, I rented out some bikes to some clients in the past, and one of them coincidentally came back, and a while later I saw that someone had repaired this inner tube, and I was like, this is amazing. This patch repair has actually worked. So I thought I'm going to research how he did this. So my advice, you know, if you want to save some money, patching tubes, you know, no one's going to know if you've patched it unless, you know, you're riding with a buddy and then you stop and then they see it. But no one's going to know. It holds air just as well. You'll save $20 right there if you learn to patch inner tubes. Most people are probably on tubeless these days, but there again, you're spending money on liquids all the time, liquid outlay with the tubeless setups. So it's probably cheaper getting inner tubes. I don't know about that. Next thing I'll say is, well, chain oil. I had in the past I don't know if you know from some of my other videos, I had a huge rental bike fleet in Tenerife where I'd rent out 20 up to sometimes 30 bikes every week. They'll always being rented out. So I had literally a fleet of bikes, and one of the first costs that I saw, which was it took me by surprise, was the cost of lubricant, chain lubricant. So you can imagine having one bike and a little bottle of lubricant costs maybe $15. But I soon blew through one bottle and I thought to myself, at this rate, this is going to cost me hundreds of dollars. So I had to save money somehow. And that was one of the first ways that I actively started saving money. On my own bike, I tend to use the wax lubricants that don't leave an ugly mark on your leg. But if you don't worry about that, what I ended up finding was basically just car engine oil. I used standard car engine oil, a big tub of like 4 liters, and I didn't think I used probably 1 liter, or I don't know, after 5 years of renting out 20 bikes. So the cost was extremely minimal. And no one really even complained or noticed about it either. And the other reason I went to this oil, engine oil, believe it or not, engine oil, you could probably use a thinner oil such as sewing machine oil. The other reason was bikes were coming back with the wax lubricant, and they didn't even make it to the, say, 1 week or 2 week rental interval before, I was coming back, they were coming back with this wax lubricant, and they weren't even lasting 1 or 2 weeks without being re-lubed. So that was another reason. You could save a substantial amount of money there on chain oil. I have gone back to wax because, well, you know, it's the normal oil. If you use oil, it's a bit dirtier, attracts dirt. That's true. But some of these lubricants these days, like this ludicrous as fuck muck off oil, they are asking ridiculous amounts of money, and $90 for a little bottle this big. I suggest don't waste your money on that. That's just. I even wanted to review that product, but I won't. I'll leave the chain oil and the chain reviews to other people who talk about chain longevity and other things. But things like that, they're really only using graphic design to sell substances that don't actually cost that much money. So that leads me on to what I was next going to talk about, which is all the cleaning products. Now, okay, it's nice if you have a really nice bike and it's like almost like your pet and you look after it. You want to buy all the bike polish and everything. I think I don't do that anymore. I never really got into that anyway, but pretty much I don't think any of it's needed. A lot of it's just overpriced detergent, and um, especially the brand Muck-Off. All they sell is cleaning products and just packaged well, and you're spending, well, could possibly be hundreds of dollars when you don't really need it. You could probably just go and buy a can of GT85 or whatever it's called, spray that on the frame, and you'd be fine, or nothing at all. I don't know, but some of those products are getting silly money, and well, if you want to save money, that's probably the one place to do it, is with the cleaning products. I just use a rag, t-shirt rag, old clothes to clean the chain, and I put more lube on. Like, cost to me for the rag is $0. So that's what I do with that. What else? Lately, I used to go a lot further, so I had nutrition needs and bought a lot in terms of energy bars, energy gels, so on, energy drinks. I don't tend to do that anymore because I'm just going for shorter rides, and look at me, I'm fat enough anyway. I have enough fat on me. So, I just use plain water in my water bottle. I don't spend on unnecessary sports drinks. I'm not some Tour de France thing. And I think overall, yeah, that can save you a lot of money right there because you just tap water. I'm just using straight up tap water. And I don't really even have energy bars. I'm not cycling that far. But what they would do, I noticed the difference in Spain, say, for example, They wouldn't use energy bars, they'll just stop at a cafe and get some real food. So there's that. What else can I say? I think that's all I wanted to really talk about. What else? A couple of other things. I don't tend to use. No, I don't. I don't use cycling jerseys anymore. For one thing, I don't really like the high collar or the zipper or the pockets, so I'm just using base layers from other athletic sports. I have one Giordano top and I have an old Nike Dri-FIT top that I use. Those are cheaper than buying jerseys all the time. I This is more general, but I try to minimize the amount of things I'm subscribed to these days. I don't like subscription services because they all add up, and before you know it, you're paying 100 or more dollars a month on all this stuff, and you might not even use it every month. So I'm not subscribed to any streaming things or anything like that. Another thing is I don't actually attend any cycling events. There was one advertised near me recently, and the thing costs, I think it was $85 to enter an event to cycle with other people, strangers that I've never met. And well, one of the great things about cycling is it's once you have the bike and all the equipment, there's no like license fees. Well, unless you race, there's no license fees or registration fees. It's not like a car or a motorbike where you have to pay a license and then rego and then compulsory insurance. You don't need any of that. So that's one of the fantastic things about cycling. But that's what I'm saying is now, why would you then want to pay to go to an event? In this case, it was 85 for the minimum route, 120, I think, dollars for the longer one. When I can just go and do that the next weekend with less people and not spend $120. Well, some people are social, okay, but those I don't quite understand why you'd want to spend $100 on an an event that's not even that um, well known or anything. So, so in summary, cycling has become like the new golf. The prices are getting out of hand. Well, uh, if you think everything's getting too expensive like me, then just don't buy the expensive stuff and look for other alternatives. In my case, it means, well, I'm probably not going to buy any new bikes ever again because I don't think the value is there. I'd rather just buy slightly older bikes, uh, but that's me. And I tend to buy parts separately now, so I know exactly where my money's going and I have limits about what I want to spend my money on. Say, takes for example the cassettes that they have these days. I just don't think the value is there when they're asking $600 for a steel cassette. It's not even got anything exotic in it. It's just steel. Now, steel's one of the most cheap. It's the most cheap material, pretty much production like construction thing material going, and yet somehow even chromoly, it's not that expensive, and yet somehow they managed to get people to pay $600 for a cassette that's going to wear out. It's crazy. I don't do it anymore. Well, no, I've never paid that much for a cassette, I don't think. Uh, anyway, so that. Now, lastly, probably I would say wheels as well. You can save a lot of money on different wheels. The price of aftermarket wheels has gone up again in the last 10 years or so. I don't know exactly the range of time, but you know, I do have a set of carbon wheels. I don't think they're really that worth it. the prices of some of the carbon wheels these days, like what Campagnolo's asking and other brands, $3,000 for a set of wheels, $5,000. The value for the average rider that's just enthusiast rider, they're not worth it. I do have a set of carbon wheels, yeah, but I'm probably not going to ever buy a set of new brand name carbon wheels again because the price has gone up too much. If you saw one of my last videos, I just bought some cheap shit Chinese Prem 1 for $300 each or something. You know, well, I think they were. I can't remember the exact price, but the price of wheels. Do you really need carbon wheels? Well, if you want to, if you're into racing, of course. Okay, well then, if you're a real pro racer, you'd be paid. All that'd be paid for anyway, wouldn't it? But for the average rider, I think I'd just rather have a nice set of aluminium wheels. I'm not saying I get shit ones. I like having wheels with nice double butted spokes, save a bit of weight. But a lot of the time, I'm looking at these carbon wheels that, they're not even that lightweight. They might be more aero, but so what? But the actual weight, they're no lighter than some aluminium wheels these days. So it doesn't really make that much sense, I think, uh, to get expensive things like that. You can also save money making your own wheels, building your own set of wheels, which I've done a few times now. Again, that breaks the cost down into more manageable chunks that you can then pay, and then even buy in individual things with buy it now, pay later things. But these days, I think, I wish I had known what I know now. Like when I was younger, I wish I had known in my 20s what I know now, that I'd still be fairly poor. And I probably, if I could say to my younger self now what I know now, I would say, don't waste your money on all this expensive bike stuff. Maybe just get the mid-range stuff and then put that money aside. You don't always have to spend everything, all your money, every paycheck. You really should be like putting some aside. I wish I had done that, and I've spent probably, well, I could say it's probably more than $100,000 on bike stuff, running the business and in my own personal life. That's a lot of money. 100 grand. I mean, yeah, okay, not that was for the whole fleet over many years, but I know what I'm talking about with saving money. I just don't think the value of some bikes is there anymore. If you, no matter what bike it is, if it's say these dual suspension bikes, they are getting super expensive. Do you really need, like a are you really at that level enough? If you're working and you've got a job, a corporate career, and you can afford that bike, are you really even at the level of the bike? You know, so the some of the the suspension, like the shocks, that's one technology that's got a lot better, in recent years. But do you really need a dual chamber shock with a little piggyback on? Are you going to be riding for like so many hours hardcore that you're going to heat up the oil in the shock, or can you spend a bit less and get you know a cheaper shock that's probably going to be work just fine? That's what I did with my latest shock purchase. I didn't just buy the most expensive shock. I thought, you know what, I'm not going to pay that much, I'm just going to get the one without the piggyback. See, the whole job of magazines and you know YouTube channels is to sell advertising, and there's a few well-known YouTube channels that are always trying to convince you to buy the latest thing because they get sponsored, they're getting free product, they're getting kickbacks, they're getting percentages sometimes. They know it's all part of the big industry, and we're kind of brainwashed by consumerism that you'll be happier if you buy this latest product. You'll be happier when they show you all the advertising and the photographs of people smiling and happy, as if you're going to be magically, your mental state and life situation will be magically a lot better if you buy this product. And I think it's a bit unrealistic these days, and I don't think as many people are falling for it. It's a type of brainwashing in a way. Um, I wish I hadn't have spent so much money over the years on all this expensive kit. Anyway, I hope I've even saved someone $5. If that's the case, I think this video might be worth it, even if I've just saved someone $1. I don't care. So that's all I have time for this time around. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.